of the Kala language of Papua New Guinea. So when you're reading that title, if you don't quite understand what that means, it's okay. I'm going to go through it, so we'll figure that out. So for my research, I live between 6 remote villages in Papua New Guinea, along the coast, close to Leh right here. We're helping communities to develop a writing system for their language, because the children were no longer learning Kala as their first language. This is happening because Tok Pisin was introduced. Because in Papua New Guinea, there are between 800 and 900 different languages. So Tok Pisin was created. It's a combination of English and other Melanesian languages, just so that everybody could kind of communicate together. So the elders were finding that they were learning Tok Pisin instead of Kala, and because they didn't have a standardized writing system, within a couple generations when the children grew up, they wouldn't be able to teach their own children the language, so they were afraid about that. So I traveled between 6 different villages along the coast and collected word lists with plants, animals, food, just kind of everyday vocabulary. And we asked one knowledgeable female speaker and one male speaker from each of the villages to come with us. And we also had research assistants that we used. And whenever we would interview a female, we'd have the female research assistant, and the same thing with the male. This is an example of one of the word lists here. This is the English on the left, the Tok Pisin in the middle, and these scribbles on the side here, that's Kala in the International Phonetic Alphabet. So what we would do is we'd sit down with our speakers, record everything, and we would say the word in Tok Pisin, and they would tell us how to say it in their language, and we would write it down. Later on, Christine and I, my supervisor, we could compare our notes and make sure that we were hearing the same sounds and that there wasn't any differences. And if there were, we could always go back and listen to it again to make sure everything was right. So using the word list, we were able to develop different options to use for the writing system. We held a meeting with the Kala committee, which was made up of 2 men and 1 woman from each village. And we discussed the different options that we could use for the writing system. And this is what we came up with here. Everybody voted on it, and this is what they decided they wanted to use. Is a writing system. As you can see, this one in the bracket here, that's because out of the 6 villages, there are 4 different dialects, and only 2 of the dialects have this sound, so that's why it's in brackets. After we agreed on the writing system, we held a language workshop. So anyone and everyone was welcome to come from all of the villages and learn this new writing system. Teachers came as well, and we taught everyone. We practiced transcriptions, we made books, we did stories, games, all kinds of things that we're able to take right back to the community and start using. My role in this project, I specifically focused on the morphology, which is how words are formed in a language, and the sytnax, which is the sentence structure. I'm going to go over some examples in English just so everyone's on the same page here. So a morpheme is the smallest part of a word that carries meaning. So happy is a morpheme because you can't write it down anymore. We also have other morphemes that we can add to the word to change the meaning as well. So in this example, we have unhappy. You could say happiness, happinesses, combine all kinds of little pieces of the word to change the meaning there. In syntax, in English, we have a subject, verb, object, sentence order. So I, he, you, pretty straightforward. We also have qualifiers, which could be a or the, and the adjective comes before the object in English. So an example of that is, I see the black dog. Everybody following? Yes? Okay. In Kala, some morphology, okay? So whenever you're talking about going somewhere in Kala, you need to have something called a directional morpheme. And that's this tiny little piece at the end here, and that indicates where you're going. So at all times, you need to know north, east, whatever, the directions you're going, okay? So an example of this is Yomia Pi Aum, which means I'm going north towards the garden. So after we're done walking along the beach to the garden, we need to go into the garden. So we change the sentence again, and it becomes Yomia To Aum, which means I'm going into or going west, okay? So the same thing, we've been working all day, we've got our bananas, we've got our coconuts, and we want to go back home now. We change the sentence again, and it becomes Yomia Su Ambora, which means I'm going south or I'm going back towards the village. And you can also use these directions like up and down, in and out. So if I was going up a coconut tree or coming down, or going into a canoe or coming out, all kinds of things like that, it's all related to direction. In the study of morphology, we have something called a bound morpheme and a free morpheme. So a bound morpheme means it has to be connected to another morpheme to give it meaning. So an example of this is un. You can't just say un by itself, it doesn't make any sense. You need to combine it with something else so that we understand what you're talking about. A free morpheme is like happy. You can say happy and everybody knows what you're talking about. So kala has this as well. These two words here, mange and ngai, are free morphemes. Mange means hands and ngai means foot. The morphemes along the top here, yuku, udu, ngai, and lugu, those are all bound morphemes. They only make sense when we combine them to the other ones. So an example, we have mange, which is hand, and if we add yuku, mange yuku becomes finger. We have ngai, and if we add yuku, it becomes toe. The same thing all across. Mange udu wrist, ngai udu ankle. Okay? Syntax in kala. Kala also has a subject, verb, object, sentence order. An example of this is yoka no kai, which means I see you. Exactly the same as English. There are some minor differences in that they don't have qualifiers. So they don't have a or the. And the adjective also follows the noun, so the order is reversed. An example is yokano wo yama, which word for word translates to I see pig bath. Okay? In tense for kala, in English we would say something like I went, where the verb changes. Kala doesn't have a verb change at all. They put a separate word in. So if I wanted to talk about something in the future, I could say in 3 weeks, in 500 years, in 2 hours or something, and that indicates when it's happening. It also works for the past. I could say 5 minutes ago, when I was a little girl, like 3 years ago or something. That all indicates the tense. So an example of this is Kreme yokano go yama, which in English would be something like tomorrow I will see the bad pig, but word for word it translates to tomorrow I see pig bad. Okay? So right now, I'm currently working on a dictionary that will be sent back to the community any day now. We're just finishing up some last-minute details on that. And I'm going to include an introduction that's going to have biographies of all the native speakers. It's also going to have some stories from their language as well included in the new writing system. I want to have a map of each of the locations and the differences between the dialects, and then also the findings that I've had in my morphology and syntax. This is an example of one part of the dictionary. And when I was in Papua New Guinea, I had a meeting with all of the members from the Kala committee. And I asked them, what do you want to be included in your dictionary? And they told me, we want to have English, we want to have Kala, and we want to have Tok-Pisin. So I didn't want English to be the main emphasis of the dictionary, so I've chosen to include it, but I put it in the brackets here. Anytime you see the bracket, that's the English word there. So I have 2 sections. If you think about like a French-English dictionary, one side would be French to English, and the back would be English to French. It's a similar idea to that. So I have Kala to Tok-Pisin with English in the brackets, and then on the reverse we have Tok-Pisin to Kala with English in the brackets as well. It's broken up into sections. It's a little bit different than a normal dictionary that we look at in that they have a section for plants, for animals, for food, for numbers, for families, for adjectives, different things like that, and within those sections they're alphabetical. We've also included drawings that some of the people did from the villages, like these ones here, and pictures that were taken while we were there. And the reason that we did this was so that the people could really feel involved in this dictionary. They could say, hey, I drew that picture. Isn't that great? Oh, I know that place. Oh, I've been there. Oh, that's my sister. And give people motivation to really want to use this dictionary. This is the opposite version, the Tok-Pisin to Kala. And if you can see these abbreviations right here, what those represent are the different villages and the different dialects. And the reason they wanted everything to be included is that sometimes someone from a southern village won't know the northern dialect. So this gives them an opportunity not only to learn their own dialects, but to learn all of the dialects as well.